On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 2023. We're going to be taking a look at Bryan Adams, and he's going to be performing Thought I'd Died and Gone to Heaven. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, taking a look at Bryan Adams, one of the voices of my youth. I listened to his Reckless album on tape, so showing my age, but I listened to it on tape just back to back, just on repeat. Obviously, you couldn't have it literally on repeat because you had to turn the tape over. But anyway, yeah, a voice I know very well. So this request came through to take a look at one of his live performances from last year. And something that I do want to mention before I get into this video is that on TV, in the UK, there's, multiple shows where bands and artists come on, and it's almost a given that they're going to be miming and certainly not playing any instruments or that kind of stuff. They might have a live vocal, but everything isn't 100% live. And for the particular show that I happened to see a little bit of, Bryan Adams, when he came on to perform, where normally people would be miming and pretending to play because that's just what the show did, he was playing fully live. And when I say fully live, I mean the whole band, instrumentation and his vocal, backing vocals, and it really stood out because I've never seen a band do it fully live on this particular show. So I've always known that he's just an amazing artist, just all round, but especially live, being able to produce the same sound that he did in the studio. So this is where I start to feel a bit of apprehension because of obviously my personal taste and being a huge fan of Bryan's, and then somebody requesting a video on him to look at pitch correction or auto-tune. So we're going to be jumping into this. As always, my videos are objective, so even if it's artists that I am a huge fan of, I am going to jump into it and just analyse things as I normally do. So as always, there's a link to the original performance in the description below, so you guys can check out that. I have isolated the vocal, run it through the pitch monitoring software, so obviously I'm going to be jumping into this. It is an analysis, I'm not just going to watch the performance. So let's get into it, and this is just Bryan's lead vocal.
Love is forever as I lie awake beside you. I believed.
And straight away, if you know Bryan's voice well, but I don't think you even need to know it that well because of some of the huge hits that he's had. He has such an expressive voice. But unfortunately, that expression in his voice has now been calibrated absolutely to a 440 standard pitch equal temperament. And you'll see later on as to why I've made these lines red. So it didn't bode well because as soon as we went into the first note of Bryan's vocal, it's been squashed to the D sharp 4. And what's annoying about it is, just everything, but Bryan has such an expressive voice. When he does hold a note, he'll occasionally have a subtle vibrato in there that is more subtle than when he's kind of leaning into it and getting a little bit more dramatic. So it's something that just gives the vocal so much expression. But the other thing is you're always going to hear the processing sound of pitch correction because the note wasn't there and the note would have varied off the line, so it's constantly working to keep it on the line.
Love.
So yeah, it just sounds awful. So another point to bring up is, who is doing this? Because I've actually seen a lot of performances from the Royal Albert Hall, which this is from, and I'm talking about not just Bryan Adams, but other artists who have come out looking like this and sounding like this. So I don't know whether it's, it might be that artists are all on the same record label, Or maybe it's the Royal Albert Hall that are giving artists this as their performance and saying, there you go, here was your performance from the other night, and now you can do what you want with it, not knowing that they have pitch corrected the hell out of the vocal so that it doesn't even sound like the vocalist anymore. And like I said, I've seen loads of Royal Albert Hall performances that sound this bad. So yeah, I don't know who is doing this.
Is forever.
And like that, you can hear that processing and look at the way that it's been stuck to the D sharp 4 even before we get up to the E4. No, no, no. That little slide up, again, absolutely squashed onto the line. So, anyway, as we listen on, we know that great vocalists can hit these lines now and again. They will do it just, as collateral damage of having a great voice. They will occasionally be on the lines of A440 standard pitch equal temperament, but they're not going to be on them all the time. Let's just listen on. So now, as soon as we now start the next phrase, every single phrase that Bryan has sung has started on equal temperament. And that's absolutely not how his voice works. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I don't want to kind of listen to it too much because you'll see this the whole way through, that it's just absolutely over the lines. And you'll be able to, when I was listening to this performance, just from the request to look at it, I knew straight away from that first note that just sounds ridiculous because not only are they pitch correcting it, they're flattening out the voice. So you'd get more natural variation in, the waves of pitch. But as you've seen in previous videos that I've done looking at Melodyne, you can make the waves of the voice and therefore the vibrato thinner so that they cover less pitch, so that they sound more mechanical. Obviously, it's going to make the pitch more accurate, but it's going to make it sound mechanical because you're taking away that natural tendency that the person has in their voice to sometimes apply a vibrato.
Crazy.
See, that kind of thing. Look at the frequency with which we are over these lines, even when there is a little wobble to it. And again, this tiny little notch here, this tiny little notch here, it's just so over the top.
It's gotta be strong.
And again, here, was there a little notch here that's stuck exactly on the line? And then here. So anyway, yeah, I mean, as we work our way through it, you'll just see all the time. There might be the occasional part that is ever so slightly off because this is pitch correction. This is not, let me clear this up, this is not Bryan Adams using auto-tune live, even though it looks like it is because it is that badly pitch corrected. This has been done after the performance, so when it's then released. And I've just had a thought that's popped up in the back of my mind. This might have been a live album. So this might actually be the audio, even though it's with the video that I'm looking at. This might be what they've released as a live album, and if they have, I don't know if Bryan knows that this has happened to his voice, that they have changed. Look at this. Whenever you go through it, you will see it directly over the lines all the time. Anyway, I don't have to go through the whole thing because it is the same the whole way through. And if you listen to the live performance, you will be able to hear it is the same the whole way through. So now, just to cleanse our ears, we are going to listen to the original release from 1991. And remember, this is Bryan recording his vocal in the studio. It's not a live performance. So if he were performing live and the vocal is stuck to A440 standard pitch equal temperament, something's happened. And we already know something's happened, but we have the original release on the left-hand side. Let's have a look.
Ooh, yeah.
So, immediately, we get Bryan Adams' voice as it naturally is. And guess what? It's not on the lines. This is the first thing that he does in this performance in the studio, is he's going, yeah, yeah, and he's kind of holding on a note here, comes down, but he has this natural variation in his voice. And again, this is in the studio, so they could do multiple takes if they weren't happy with how it sounded. And this, again, to bang on about the point of producers are now not listening, they're looking at these lines. So they would look at this and they wouldn't listen to it and think, oh, that sounded cool. They'd look at it and think, oh, hang on, that's not on this line of the G sharp 4, so let's now squash it to the line. Now, just to mention something about the original release in 1991, that will come out tuning-wise at about 437 hertz, I think. So, this is just for the technical people out there. That's what I have calibrated the pitch monitoring software to, because back in the day when they used tape, of course, tape sometimes ran fast, sometimes it ran a little bit more slowly. And I mean, it might have even been the case that Bryan, being just a great performer and having a great live band, they might have just tuned up in the studio to themselves, and they weren't really worried about A440. They were just going to tune up and record it as it was. Let's listen on, and I think what we'll do is mute the Royal Albert Hall performance and just listen to the original, even though we're going to have the Royal Albert Hall on the right hand side. Let's have a look.
Love.
And immediately my point is proven with the D sharp 4. Look at that variation. I mean, and I know that this is already a tiny detail. The first 2 notes of the song are less accurate in the studio than they are apparently live, because obviously this is edited. But listen to the way that in that first note, and I'm not going to go through the whole song like this, but trust me, I could, to point out how ridiculous the one on the right hand side is. And remember, that's apparently a live vocal and this is the studio. And I think personally that Bryan has nothing to do with this. He's not applying this himself. He might not even know that this has happened. That people are just absolutely, for me as a fan, as a lifelong fan, they are wrecking his voice. He doesn't need pitch correction. He sings well enough as it is, and people should already know that because of how successful he is, not only with his songwriting, his albums, but his live performances, which now they are changing. There's been nothing wrong with his live performances for, what, 40 years? I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. And anyway, let's get back into this.
Love.
Anyway, yeah, I didn't even explain this. Again, I'm going to have to stop myself from getting sidetracked because I have to be objective. It's just so frustrating. So, that first line, the love, there was so much in that. It wasn't love. It wasn't a computer singing it.
It's forever as I lie.
And again, tiny details. Look at the way that Bryan's gone above the E4. Just, again, the expression is between these lines, not over them. And here he got squashed to the line, live.
Are you awake?
And look, I mean, where's the straight line over here? And I know it hasn't picked up all of it, but I guarantee you, this did not go straight on this line. It would have gone up and it would have come down through the pitch, then back down here. Maintains pitch really accurately here, but guess what? Not on the line compared to the live version exactly over the line.
Beside you.
And this is that bit of vibrato. Inside you. That little bit of vibrato in there. I would say, I would expect Bryan to do that naturally, just within that vocal phrase. But look how much thinner that vibrato is here on the right hand side. And we know that they do this in Melodyne, that you make the vibrato cover less pitch to get it more accurate, to stick it over the line. But this is still perfectly over the line, but with the natural vibrato.
I believe.
And again, let's have a look at this, directly over the line, and look at the way that Bryan's natural voice descends, and, probably might have straightened out a little bit here, and then comes down. I mean, literally every phrase, Bryan Adams' voice is amazing, just for pitch, for expression, for everything. Vibrato, control, and his tone is just his own sound as well. You know Bryan Adams' voice as soon as you hear it. So who has decided that he needs pitch correction? It is absolutely crazy. Because this is the thing, that pitch correction is being used in 2024 because vocalists aren't as accurate. And it's just a fact that singers now, mainstream singers in the pop charts, are not as accurate as singers who were singing 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. It's totally changed. But in order to get those vocals to sound close, or to sound accurate pitch-wise, they're now calibrating it all. But the problem is, it's almost like a suction effect of all of the artists in the music industry. They've sucked in the artists that aren't very accurate pitch-wise so that they're now on these lines. But for some reason, all the other artists who are already accurate enough are getting sucked into this vacuum as well. So that now everybody has the same accuracy of hitting pitch. But of course, as I've said in multiple videos before, that is just to the record industry's advantage, because it means that a singer that isn't as accurate, they haven't worked at their vocals, they haven't worked at hitting pitch accurately, they will be as accurate as Bryan Adams. So this is it. It's just a level playing, well, literally now, a level playing field. Everybody's voice is in a line, regardless of, how long you've been in the industry or your track record. This is the stupid thing. I think that in the industry, people should say, whoa, Bryan Adams has written, and performed, released some of the best songs of all time. And his vocal on those best songs of all time is unaffected. He didn't use it. So should we leave that alone? Because if we leave his voice alone, he could release more songs that might be that popular and might connect with people on that level, because he's got something intrinsic within his voice that hits a chord with people on an emotional level. Should we just keep it and, keep it as something that's already worked and we know it's worked, that hasn't been edited? Or should we pitch correct it to something that we're using on artists who aren't as good at singing? And somebody has said, I think we should pitch correct him. Given his whole history of having hits with his natural voice, let's now change his voice, because we don't want to repeat all of the success of the past. We want to now make it the same as these other artists who are selling nowhere near the numbers or have had nowhere near the hits of Bryan Adams. It just doesn't make sense on any level. But anyway, yeah, I think this video is pretty much, sadly, I would love to be able to get into a live performance of Bryan Adams and just point out how great he is live. But I can't do that with this request because it is so outrageously pitch corrected.
There's no heaven.
So there we go again. So slightly below the E4, exactly over the E4, exactly on the line here. And here down to the line, slightly sharp of the line. Yeah, it's a little... Here's the irony, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the left-hand side here, the E4. This is the voice of someone who doesn't need to be corrected, but look what they've done on the right hand side, stuck it over the line and squashed it. It's almost like they're going through each artist, like they've got all of the artists' names on the label and they're thinking, oh, this is an artist who's been around for 30 or 40 years, so let's go through all of their back catalogue and now apply pitch correction, because sadly that is what's happening, as I've shown multiple times with Freddie Mercury now. So, yeah, it's just as crazy as that. Sacrilege to be doing that to such iconic voices. And for me, Bryan Adams has one of those voices, or had one of those voices, because this isn't his voice anymore. So even though he's out there performing live, if you go to watch him live, he doesn't use auto-tune, so you will hear his voice. But if you're watching videos of his performances, then sadly, on this evidence, you're not going to hear his voice anymore. Thank you guys, in a way, for asking me to take a look at this performance and analyse it. I've done about as much as I can do, because this is just going to continue throughout the whole performance when you compare it with that original release in 1991, which is a shame. But keep those suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below. As always, let me know what you guys think. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!